let me change hats because I want to share with you performance benchmark from great enduring organizations and what that looks like and how do they shape their supply chains with their culture to achieve great enduring results. So changing hats here, I'm going to shift from conference host to presenter on this subject around the connected worker that we have today, that we all have become connected workers in different ways. Although there have been physical distances and separations that have been imposed on us, some may argue that we have become more connected than ever before through different technologies that we're using, like the one we're using today. So as we discuss the supply chain and cultural transformations, let me share my screen here with you. You should be able to see my screen there momentarily. We are going to discuss how a very small subset of organizations in the world are being successful of integrating their supply chain and culture into meaningful transformations that create value. And I want to be clear, this is a very small subset of organizations that are successful at doing that. Because although we hear about, digital transformation as somewhat of a trendy word and expression, the reality of digital transformations is that most of them are failing miserably, because just automating or bringing technology to what we do without transforming our business, without transforming our culture, is ineffective. And it's incredibly tempting, but as we discussed before, technology can make great things happen, but it can also make stupid happen at the speed of light. So how do we make sure that our transformations and our supply chains are aligned with the best practices for this great enduring organization? So what do those practices look like? What are the concepts? What are the mechanisms that they use? And what can we learn from them, and how can we apply to our organizations? Now, as a preface to the discussion, culture can be this big word, and we're going to talk a little bit about what culture means in the context of our discussion. We could spend hours debating some of these items, but I want to emphasize to you that none of the things that I'm going to share with you are based on my opinion on what I like and what I don't like, or any book that I have written about the subject. These are truly the perspectives of great enduring organizations and practitioners who are doing this today. So I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude for the collaborative leaders across many organizations that have helped me build this understanding of great enduring organizations. And by all means, I'm not saying that these organizations shown here are all great enduring organizations, because they are not. Achieving greatness is one thing, maintaining that greatness is incredibly difficult, especially on the very rapid changing times that we're living through right now, with tremendous uncertainty and lots of disruptions. But I do owe to them this understanding of what it takes to shape your culture towards enduring greatness. And I want to start by showing the winners. This goes back to the Digital Transformation Operational Excellence Awards that we had in December of last year. And we were able to award prizes to the best of the best organizations, and they get here on the stage and we celebrate them. But the impression that it gives is that there's a whole lot of organizations that are at this level of greatness. And the reality is that what this picture doesn't show is that for the few winners that we see on the stage, there is a long road littered with failures on digital transformation. And for the ratio that I would say, for the people that you see here on the stage, for the actual people who think they're there, or the organizations who think they're there, it's maybe a 1 to 100 ratio. Some people talk about 80% failure rates, 90% failure rates. I think if you look at the intended outcomes of digital transformation and the actual results, those failure rates are much higher. And so now, what do the winners look like? What do they have? What have we learned from doing this across now 10 years now, and certainly digital transformation has intensified in the last maybe 3 or 4 years. But what have we learned from the organizations that make it, and what have we learned from those that really never make it? So I want to start by identifying the blockers that we have seen through practice, and there is some research that has been done by different organizations that conclude the same things. This specific one was a study of 5,000 organizations by IEEE that I use as research evidence, but the reality is that our practical experience showed the exact same thing. And so call it confirmation bias, if you will, but these are the things that we are also seeing in practice that are become blockers for organizational speed, innovation, and growth, and really failed digital transformations, including supply chain transformations. What we see is that organizations think that technology is going to solve their problems. They implement technological solutions. It starts with a bang and then dies a slow death, slowly chewed away by the jaws of the culture of that organization. Now, what you see are things like, well, our organization is incredibly siloed. That's why it's so hard to do this. We need more collaboration. Or we have a lack of faith in the objectives of our organization. There's no higher purpose here, so I can't align my purpose as an individual to the purpose of this organization to achieve this great performance. There's fear of failure that permeates all organizations at the individual level, at the social level, at the structural organizational level. Fear abounds in organizations, especially in times of great change and great disruption. And then there are organizations and professionals who just can't deal with uncertainty. They have a hard time with ambiguity. And these are the top 5 blockers for this journey of transformation. Now, what's behind these blockers? And what's behind these blockers is what we call the jaws of culture. Because every organization has a culture that's, whether it's being designed or it has evolved, it exists. And culture exists at the highest level, the enterprise-wide. Culture exists at local levels, geographic locations. Culture is certainly segmented. But the jaws of culture, if what you have, what are you doing? I don't care if it's technology, if it's supply chain, whatever initiative you have in your organization, if it's not aligned with the jaws of culture, it's going to chew it up and it's going to spit it out. So let's get a little bit deeper on this. So what is really culture in the context that I'm speaking about here? And we can spend years discussing this topic. I will not. I'll look at it from a practitioner's perspective. And from a practitioner's perspective, we need to simplify what culture is to get the most results out of that. And what culture is simply are the habits and the behaviors of the individuals and teams in the organization. What people feel and what people think and what they say matters quite a bit, but ultimately, culture is created by what people do. And then the question becomes, wow, if it is about the behaviors of individuals and teams in this organization, and I want to have a good culture, what does that mean? What does it mean to have a good culture in our organization? That's a very good question. It's a very difficult question. And the only common denominator that we have seen on great enduring organizations is that they have a very clear answer to that question. And the clear answer to that question is that they certainly have a strong set of core values, but the behaviors that's demonstrating their organization that shapes their culture, the only common trait and behavior that we have seen across all these great enduring organizations is that they have built a good culture built on value creation behaviors. Now, value creation can be financial value creation for sure, but it also includes social value creation. How do we use our talents and gifts to serve the world? So it's financial and social value creation behaviors is what they demonstrate. Okay, so if I need to demonstrate the social value creation behaviors, so we should be transforming towards that and developing and implementing and making those behaviors visible to everybody else. That sounds good, but why is that so hard to do then? But why so many organizations go into this culture and business transformation, but they fail? Well, they fail because number one, they don't even understand that they need value creation behaviors. And two is that even if they understand that, your culture will resist what it most needs to change. So it's like telling a smoker that they need to stop smoking. It's pretty obvious, right? But it's not easy because there's a reason why the old habit was built, and that you don't get to change that old habit by saying don't do it anymore. You have an entire system that needs to be created for that transformation to take place successfully. And before we get too self-righteous about transformation, and you're gonna say, oh yeah, well, I'm really good about it, but everybody else is bad about it, just understand that we as human beings are not wired for change. And organizations is the collective reflection of who we are. So change is good as long as it does not affect us personally, right? So remember, organizations are like that. They long for safety and predictability. Change and transformation is painful. And who wants to do that? So if you don't have a set of clear directives on why you want to transform, you won't be successful. So what does it take to successfully transform that? And what we have seen is that it takes a holistic view, which very few organizations have, including very senior leaders. I am privileged to have collaborated with more than 50,000 excellence innovation leaders across all industries in more than 20 countries. And you'll be appalled about the things that I'm going to share with you here. And you're going to say, well, this top CEOs, this is common sense, isn't it? Common sense is the least common of the senses, especially in large organizations. So what I'm going to share with you here at a holistic level and then a more technical level is not common sense for these organizations because they're not practicing it. And if it is common sense, it's not a common sense behavior that they're demonstrating. So the successful ones that transform themselves, what do? So I could spend hours on just this item, but I'm just going to give you the quick view of each one of the segments and move on. They start with a clear purpose. They back up, they collectively, especially as senior leaders in the organization, they understand that if you're a for-profit business, yes, you are looking for profitability in your business. You have to create value, tangible value for your business. That's fine. That's taken for granted. But what is your ultimate purpose of the organization? How do you serve the world? You must have a clear purpose today to be a great enduring organization. And that's not enough, because now you have to solidify that with a strong set of core values and beliefs that you're going to build in your organization. And those strong set of core values and beliefs are going to support that clear purpose. Two things that sound easy but are hard to do. And then you need to attack the moods and feelings in your organization. And attack may be not the right word, because I actually want to use a more positive word. You need to elevate the moods and feelings, because the reality is that the standard moods and feelings in every organization is negative. And why is that? Because we are wired for safety and predictability. Our brain was not wired for innovation and transformation. Our brain wants to keep things safe and reliable for us to survive. And organizations are like that. So the natural state of an organization is one of somewhat fearful and avoidance, wants to avoid risks and wants to keep things safe, and tends to be a bit on the negative side. So you need to work on elevating the moods and feelings in your organization, because to act at a higher level, you need to set the moods and feelings at a higher level in your organization. So there's a whole work on elevating moods and feelings in an organization. This is not about just making everybody feel good. It is about elevating moods and feelings gradually. It's about getting organizations that are typically on the negative side in their moods and feelings. They're depressed, they are stressed, they are burned out, and you start moving them to the point, at least, that they are neutral, where they can look at things and be interested in things first, even if they're not positive about them. And then over time, to move them to be more collaborative, to be more trustworthy, to be more innovative, as higher levels of moods and feelings permeate this organization. So that needs to be worked on systematically as well. And then you need to follow that up with the right mindsets for whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, with your purpose, with your core values. So just to give you an example, if you want to be a more innovative organization, you want to create value for innovation, wonderful. But then you need to understand how to develop the mindsets of innovation. And the mindsets of innovation need to be built on the right principles of innovation. And this is where it's really tricky, because the principles is not something that you read in a book. You have to look at practitioners. You have to look at the principles that the practitioners and the successful practitioners deploy. And those are the principles that you want to adopt. And some of those principles, I'll share them with you today, specific to innovation. But remember, these mindsets have to be built on key practitioner principles, not theoretical principles. And then the principles are not enough. You must develop in your organization the mechanisms that translate the principles into actions. Because it's not helpful to tell people in your organization to just be more innovative. They will agree to that, but they don't know how to do it. They don't even know what innovation means to them. So how do you set the right mindsets and principles? And then you have the mechanisms that translate the principles into actions. And it is those actions with value creation actions that will demonstrate the value creation behaviors that start shaping the culture that you want to have. Now, this is incredibly simple when I show like that. It's very, very hard to do. And in organizations where the average CEO in the United States anyway has a tenure of 3 years, it's not easy to be great enduring at anything because they don't have chronically consistency with their purpose. And the signature of mediocrity is not an unwillingness for you to change. The signature of mediocrity for organizations and people is chronic inconsistency with their purpose. And that's the ultimate definition of discipline. Being disciplined is not following a regimented set of rules. Being disciplined is being chronically consistent with your purpose. Now, you may find this kind of fluffy, maybe, but that's what it takes to be a great enduring organization. Because you can do lots of intelligent automation projects and you can do more efficiency in your supply chain, but that just gets you to play on the mediocrity level because any organization can do that. But if you want to be at a level where you consistently develop and deliver value at scale over long periods of time, now you need more than just a few cases here and there. You need an entire organization that's aligned with a clear purpose and fulfills every one of these requirements here for successful transformation. All right, so let me go and start getting more practical with you. So when the organizations that do it, that are successful, what do you think matters most to those organizations? Do you think that they're really good at what? Do you think that they're really good at coming up with new ideas? Do you think they're really good at the discipline methods for execution? Do you think they're really good at implementing technologies like RPA, AI, machine learning, and blockchain and many other technologies that are being implemented today? Or do you think that it's all about the people? They just value their people. Their people are their most important asset. So it must be about the people. So what do you think? What matters most on this successful journey for transforming yourself in a great enduring organization? Ideas, methods, technologies, or people? So I'll briefly go for each one of them. Well, one could argue it's ideas because we need ideas. Ideas are very important. But I'll also say that what we observed is that in mediocre organizations, ideas are everywhere. They don't have a shortage of ideas. What they don't have is people who are willing to put their reputation behind ideas. Okay, so it must be methods, right, José? It must be about agile, end-to-end supply chain optimization. It must be about digital twins and digital twins applications. It must be about lean. It must be about Six Sigma. Methods are important for creating a disciplined approach for execution. But methods alone do not transform businesses. People do. I have been a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt for nearly 30 years. But for most people, that sounds like a dangerous mental condition. It doesn't help them. Methods do not transform businesses. People do. Okay, so it must be technologies. Technologies, like you have mentioned, we did RPA and intelligent automation next week. We're going to be talking about enterprise architecture a couple of weeks from now. We have machine learning and AI and blockchain and natural language processing. And we have all these amazing new technologies that are coming to the world today and changing the way we work and with the way we live. That is true, but it's also true that the wrong technology can make stupid happen at the speed of light. So the question becomes, is it about technology, ideas, methods, technologies, or is it people? People, huh? I have already mentioned people a few times. People, after all, are our most important asset. We say that, and when we say that, we don't behave in ways that show that. We actually, when we start saying that people are most important asset, we start treating them like assets. And when things get tough, you know what we do with certain assets? We get rid of them. And we get rid of them very quickly. And people are the first ones to go. In heavy industries, they are the first one out of the door. So if they're our most important asset, I don't think our behavior is being very consistent. So people are not assets to start with. People are people. So we need to treat them like such. And most important, what we have found in great enduring organizations is that they value and respect all people. But make no mistake, there is a smaller group of people in their organization, what we call the right people, who amplify their purpose, who amplify their core values, who amplify value creation. And those people are the people who make successful transformations. Transformations do not happen without tremendous leadership. And those are the people that you need to find in your organization. Those are the people that you need to become. If you're complaining about things not working in your organization, maybe you're the person who needs to step up and lead the transformation for the organization. So, as I said here, the world of greatness is very confusing because it has these forces that pull in very different directions. Everything that I said, I had a counter statement that was a contradiction to a certain extent. I was saying this is good and bad. The world of greatness is not an or world. The world of greatness is an and world where we have to intelligent blend forces that pull in very different directions. Mediocrity spends endless hours debating between option A or option B. Greatness realizes that in most cases, what is required is an intelligent blending of these forces that pull in different directions. It is option A and option B. The question is that how can we live with that? And there is no greater contradiction than the forces of excellence and innovation. Because on one side, you have excellence that is all about setting high performance standards and meeting and exceeding those performance standards. Nothing wrong with that. You should do that. But if you only do that, you're destined to become obsolete and irrelevant, especially in times of rapid change and technological change like we're observing. Now, then you may say, okay, got it. So it must be all about innovation, right? So the most innovative organizations are the great enduring organizations of our time. And that's actually not true. The evidence doesn't bear that. What we have seen in the organizations that are great enduring organizations, that they are actually not the most innovative in their segment. If you consider most innovative as they come up with innovations all the time, what we have seen is that the great enduring organizations, they have innovation, but they are not the most innovative, because the most innovative organizations, they tend to fall in love with technology. They tend to fall in love with innovation for its own sake. They continuously innovate, but they are not consistent with their purpose. So they innovate, they pride themselves about being nimble and agile. But if you look them long term, it's a straight line performance with a zigzag around that straight line performance. They're just doing and undoing things all the time. That doesn't make you great. That makes you mediocre. You must be chronically consistent with your purpose. How do you get there? You have a foundation of excellence. And that's what we have seen in these great enduring organizations, a foundation of excellence. And then they have the discipline to step away from that and say, there's got to be a better way. Not a 5 or 10% better way, but a 5 or 10-fold better way. And when I find a new perspective, that innovation, now I have the discipline to scale that innovation better than anybody else. And do you know how great enduring organizations scale innovation? They scale innovation by applying the principles of excellence to the innovation that they created. So although excellence and innovation despise each other, they're absolutely necessary for each other to transform organizations into great enduring organizations. Now, there's a lot to absorb here. There's a lot to digest. That's the practice that we have seen and what comes out of that practice. Now, I have advised hundreds of organizations around the world, but it's different when I am actually the leader of excellence and innovation for these organizations. So because now I have to live with the consequences of that. So very briefly, I want to share with you, what does it feel like when you're leading these things for organizations? And what are the lessons that I can share with you as a leader, not as an advisor? So as a leader, my background was in engineering and investment banking. I was born in Brazil, studied in the United States. My first job was to work for a Japanese company, and I was in the most advanced technological development positions as Sony in the beginning of my career. So here's a Japanese company where I have my boss. His name was Shigo Hayashi, and I went to Sony thinking that, whoa, I'm going to be doing technology development and design for Sony. You know, back then was like, I'm at the top of the world, right? This is amazing. And when I got in there, Hayashi-san told me that I was not going to get any training, that I was not going to go into some sort of engineering rotational program, that he expected me on my first week of work to come up with 100 innovations on the most advanced technologies that we had in the company. 100. I thought I was going to fail. One day I can tell you the true horror of this story when we have more time, but I'll summarize. By the end of that week, I barely made it. I came up with 100 or innovations. I was hoping that he was going to give me some training assignment for next week. And then he looks at me and says, good job. Next week, you have to identify 200 innovations. So Hayashi-san became one of the greatest mentors of innovation for me for value creation to this day. And I have been very fortunate to have someone like that in my life early in my career. So what is the lesson that I want to share with you who may not have been fortunate enough to have someone like that guide you on true innovation? When it comes to real innovation, your gender, your race, your ethnicity, or how many certificates you have hanging on the I love myself wall doesn't matter. Because when it comes to great innovation, especially in times of uncertainty and rapid change like right now, the only way that you find the real innovators in your organization is by creating a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms. And by doing that, clear meritocracy of ideas and clear execution mechanisms, that the test of innovation execution will reveal who the true innovators are in your organization. So here is lesson one summarized for you. On supply chain, specifically to this topic and implementation of automation and innovations or just supply chain optimizations, your job as a leader is to create a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms for people who are working with you to identify, prioritize, and implement what creates the most value in the shortest time and simplest means. Absolutely, you have the view of the whole, and then you identify, prioritize, and implement what creates the most value in the shortest time and simplest means. And it is by doing that that you're going to be able to differentiate those who do versus those who talk about it. And those who do are disproportionately important because they are demonstrating the behaviors for success in your organization. So when I left Sony, we joined a startup that changed the world. Based in California, in San Diego, California, Cymer ASML developed technologies for the semiconductor industry that to this day allow Moore's Law to take place. I'll let you look up what Moore's Law is. This company had the best scientists in the world in this startup, and for a few years, they couldn't get anywhere. How come? I thought it was about getting the best, brightest people in the world in the place, so then they'll figure out how to solve hard problems, isn't it what we're told? Doesn't work that way. A lot of very bright people, we spend endless hours trying to convince other people in the room that they are the brightest person in the room. So it doesn't work to just get the best and brightest people in the room. You have to teach them collaborative leadership. Collaborative leadership is the least understood leadership principle and the most important leadership principle for great enduring organizations. Collaborative leadership requires you to surround yourself with people with diverse perspectives who are willing to voice those perspectives without fear of retaliation towards a common purpose. I'll let you rewind if you're watching this on video and listen to that again. It's incredibly hard to do that. But there exists a set of principles, methods, and techniques that we need to equip our professionals with so that we don't just tell them, oh, be more innovative and collaborative, that we actually show them how to do that effectively and efficiently. So collaborative leadership is essential for great enduring organizations because it allows people with different perspectives to build something great, with a common purpose. Now, when I left that very successful startup in the semiconductor industry, I wanted to spread the word of excellence and innovation across great organizations, and there was no better one than Nestle. 350,000 professionals, 585 business units all over the world. And the question is, how do you accelerate innovation and excellence in a setting like that? And the short answer and the lesson that I want to share with you is kind of the topic of this whole presentation, is that before you go in any organization, including yours, and tries to transform it, be empathetic and respectful on how they got to where they are. So if you're not empathetic to their history, if you're not empathetic to how they got to where they are, the jaws of culture are gonna chew you up and spit you out. Because if culture eats strategy for breakfast, excellence, innovation, supply chain optimizations are just side dishes in the jaws of culture. So especially in a company that large with so many cultures and subcultures, how do you start? You start by understanding how they got there, showing respect and empathy for how they got there, building value to them where they are currently, and then bringing them along. It's not easy and it's not fast. And my next case is just a very great example of that. You may not have heard of Black & Veatch. It's one of the greatest organizations on infrastructure development from around the world. More than 100 years of innovations in more than 160 countries, building infrastructure for energy, water, telecommunications. 12,000 of the best engineers doing that as a private organization that is incredibly successful. So what I want to show you some data now behind this discussion. So what does it look like now when you're in an organization like that? It sounds wonderful, right? 12,000 engineers ready to innovate, right? I had the CEO come in and say, oh, let's accelerate innovation in our company. It's a 100-year-old company. Do you think it's everybody there was happy to see the innovation guy come in and do it? No, because when you have 12,000 smart people in a business, you have 12,000 different opinions about how anything should be done. And then did I go in there and I say, okay, forget about what you have done for 100 years. Let's just go and apply the principles of excellence and innovation. No, if I did that, they would fire me and everybody who looks like me. I have to show respect and understand their history. And what is their history? History of wonderful innovations for more than 100 years, history of incredibly capable technical people, project management disciplines. I mean, incredible talented folks and very robust business processes. So were they interested in like shifting to this entrepreneurial model where you find the best people by setting a meritocracy of ideas? Not at all. Not at all. What they're interested in, they thought, I need discipline approaches. We're going to implement Lean Six Sigma in this company, and we want to do it well. We're going to focus on ideas, methods, and technologies. Notice, not on people. We focus on ideas, methods, and technologies. Why'd you do that, Jose? You just said that people is the most important. Because you have to show respect and empathy for where the organization is currently, and you got to bring them along. So otherwise, I wouldn't survive there to bring them along. So I got to show value first before I can move them. And it took 6 years to show that value so that we can move to the next level of development. Do you have the purpose, the passion, the discipline, and the resilience to do that with your organization? And then it's not only meeting them where they're at with ideas, methods, and technologies to build real value. And what you have here is the value that was created by them in their teams by applying the methodology of Lean and Six Sigma to their systems. Wonderful. We got to year 6. We should be celebrating because 50% of transformations die by year 3. 99% die by year 5. So we got to year 6. We're part of the 1% club. We should be celebrating. But as a leader of excellence and innovation, quietly uncomfortable with the status quo, I felt that I had built enough of a reputation now with value creation with the key influencers in this organization to truly transform it. And how do you truly transform it now? We need to address the people issue. we need to, now that you understand that ideas, methods, and technologies, yes, we can do that, and we're just going to be good by doing that. To be great, we need to find the right people in our organization. So I can go into my CEO now and say, hey, listen, look at the track record that we have here in the last 5 to 6 years. And what we're going to be doing to this point forward is that we're going to change. We're going to make people the center of our next level, not to be good, but to be great. And if you say that in your first year of the job, you're going to be considered a flower child that doesn't understand the business, and they're going to get rid of you or make you irrelevant. So make sure that you create a lot of value before you talk about things that are not normal to that culture. That is not the emphasis of that culture. So with that, we made the change because I had built the capital with the senior leaders and key influencers of the organization to try and experiment with something that was audacious in that organization. And what we did then is an experiment. We said, forget about, ideas are cool, methods are interesting, technologies can be interesting, but they come and go. Can we focus on the right people? Can we focus on people with purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience? Because those are the traits that we found on the right people. So can we focus on those people to create this proportional value? And in the beginning, what happened? People are skeptical. They still want to stay true just to methodology. And I have nothing against the methodology, but it's not about Lean. It's not about Six Sigma. It is about building value creation behaviors, collaborative leadership, and innovation value creation behaviors, skills, and competence across the organization. So when we did that, we had some skeptics who are not sure if they're going to jump into this, and then people realized, well, this is true. It's a meritocracy of ideas, clear execution mechanisms. They're allowing everybody to participate on this now, and they are allowing the test of innovation execution to separate those who can do it versus those who like to talk about it. So what we found is that over a 5-year period now, we had exponential growth in value creation and exponential growth in voluntary engagement at a global scale. And we went on to win multiple global awards. Now, what is the lesson here? The lesson here is that the empathy for culture, the meet your organization where they're at, show value with what they currently believe in, and then systematically change that with the focus on the right people. Now, this took 10 years in an organization that was 100 years old. Maybe you can do this in 3 years in an organization that's smaller, an organization that doesn't have such rich history of success. Maybe you have a burning platform. There was no burning platform here. So now, in my next challenge, I didn't have 10 years. I needed to do it in 18 months. So this is what I'm going to share with you. We had an organization now that was nothing but ordinary. And I was asked to come in and lead a program in this organization. And the motto was, let's go for extraordinary. Wow. And by the way, we have 18 months to make this happen in an organization that's now 10 times bigger than the previous organization. Now I'm talking about a Fortune 100 organization here. So what is the story here? The story here is that in 2010, this organization had a change in leadership. This organization had a change in leadership. The name of this company is Tesoro Corporation, and what they had at that time was a $2 billion market valuation, which was less than the book value of this company. The market didn't think much of this company. And the perception is that they're just going to go into bankruptcy and they're going to disappear. But there comes a new leader and a leadership team, looks at what we can do here to separate ourselves with a competitive advantage. And there wasn't a clear competitive advantage. So what did we do? What we did and what they did, what the leadership team and the CEO did, was incredibly smart, but very courageous. Because what they decide is that our ultimate competitive advantage is our culture. And we need to build this culture. You go back to the picture of the Django and the components of building and transforming a culture. We need to build this culture for excellence. We need to build this culture for value creation. We need to build a culture as a competitive advantage. So how did they do that? They did that by creating a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms for excellence and innovation for value creation. They develop collaborative leadership skills widely in this organization. They create this meritocracy of ideas and made it accessible to everyone. Everybody can participate. We equip you with the ability to take different perspectives of problems, and then we allow you to identify, prioritize, and if successful in aligning those priorities with the organization strategy, with the structure of the organization, you will be given time to go implement those innovations. So you fast forward on building this discipline on an annual basis. And by the time that I got in and we are supposed to scale this in 18 months, we got to the level that we had now 2,000 innovations being identified, prioritized, and executed by our professionals everywhere in the organization, from supply chain to commercial to business development to marketing to logistics to refining to downstream operations. Over 2,000 innovations that on an annual basis by 2018 were delivering more than $1 billion in additional earnings for the organization, validated financial earnings for the organization. And this $2 billion company by 2018 had a market value of $35 billion. Now, how do we do this? So I want to summarize these concepts for you once more. How did we do this? A meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, widely developed collaborative leadership skills, and innovation execution skills. Now, ultimately, the greatest competitive advantage that you have in your organization is to unleash the power of your people to go for extraordinary. And this is a contact sport. Even though we live in this connected world where we are at a distance from each other, you still have to touch people. And you have to touch their heads, you have to touch their hands, and you have to touch their hearts. You have to be there with them in this journey to go for extraordinary. So if you could zoom in into the pictures that I have here, you would see that these people, I was there with them all along to make these things happen. Now, we only have certain times here. There's much greater depth to each one of these areas, but I want to summarize these concepts for you here. And I want to summarize them. Let me do a quick change here for you. And I want to summarize for them as the following. We have to identify in our organizations who are the right people. And the right people, they have purpose, they have passion, they have discipline, they have resilience. Once we identify the right people, then we equip them with collaborative leadership skills and innovation execution skills. Now, how do you identify these right people? In the beginning, you don't know who they are. You may have a guess or who are the people with purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience, but I'll say that that guess may be wrong. So your job as a leader is to create a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms. And when you do that, what you're going to see is that some of these people with purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience, they also have a little bit of courage and they step up. And once they step up, you say, okay, let's equip them now with the ability to take different perspectives at problems and opportunities. Innovation is a discipline. It is a discipline of taking different perspectives at problems and opportunities to unlock new value. So we must equip them with collaborative leadership skills and innovation execution skills. That's not enough. We also must share with them the message that, listen, we're going to manage risks in our organization as we do these new things to create value, but make no mistake, even after we manage risks, you must have courage. You must have courage and you must have discipline to step off the ledge. And you're going to be safe, but it will be a ride, and it will not be fun in the beginning. You'll be very rewarding as you transform yourself and your organization. And remember that ultimately, our responsibility as leaders is to create an environment in our organizations where these great people and these great ideas can connect. That is the ultimate accelerator of innovation for value creation in any organization. So because of our reduced time, I share these concepts with you here as a beginning on this journey. I want to remind you that there are only two types of people who predict the future: those who don't know and those who don't know that they don't know. So do not outsource your thinking when it comes to predicting the future, because nobody knows. And the best way to predict the future is to create the future. And the best way to create the future is to build a culture of excellence and innovation in your organization, because that will indeed become your only true sustainable competitive advantage. Because ideas and methodologies and technologies, they'll come and go. But the right people in your organization that build a culture with value creation behaviors, those you better keep. Otherwise, you're going to lose your true most valuable asset. Now, this journey continues. You know me from here. You can follow on LinkedIn the journey that we carry on until my end of life in this planet, on accelerating excellence innovations with these great enduring organizations and learning from them. What I am allowed to publish publicly is available typically on LinkedIn and other areas where I can do public announcements. So thank you for your time today. I will take any questions. You can ask them on the LinkedIn post that we have under this conference. I'm gonna change hats here now, back as a conference leader, and I want to talk about what's coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow we have an incredible lineup of industry leaders who are going to be sharing their expertise with us. And so let me change my hat back to that of conference host. And hold on a minute here. And let's talk about what's coming up tomorrow. So we have, make sure my camera is on for you. Yep. So we have tomorrow an incredible lineup of cross-industry supply chain leaders and industry thought leaders as well. So we're going to start tomorrow in the morning with Karsten Primdahl, who is the co-founder and advisor of S Certify. And S Certify, Karsten has tremendous credentials. I'll save it for tomorrow to go through all of them. But his main topic is about certifying supply chains for a number of things, including using blockchain technology for that. But he has a strong focus on sustainability and ESG as it relates to supply chains. But he will talk about everything related to supply chain and the monitoring and tracking of supply chain end to end. That's becoming a big deal for organizations that need to track where things are coming from reliably, not only from a compliance standpoint, sometimes from an ethical perspective. And I'm talking about mineral production and how that's done and how that moves through the supply chain all the way to the end products on semiconductors and so on and so forth. After that, we're going to have Daphne Liu with us. Daphne is the leader for automation and AI for Siva Logistics. So her presentation is going to be focused on how automation is bringing value to supply chain management, certainly using digital transformation and the big data, machine learning, AI as foundations for that. And then we're gonna have a very intriguing presentation on rethinking just in time. And this is going to be delivered to us by José Duval, who is a director for the Lean Center of Excellence for Variable. And he is going to be discussing with us how the concepts of lean are being updated and upgraded to the new realities that we have today. And we're going to finish tomorrow with a presentation from Christopher Hodges. And you do not want to miss the presentation from Christopher Hodges. He's the author of the book called Noble Automation. But again, we like book authors, but we really like practitioners. So beyond being a book author, most important thing, Christopher Hodges has had an entire career of practice at great companies like General Electric, and he is a top consultant, a top 5 consulting company as well, before he became an independent advisor and author. And he's going to be sharing all that he has learned on this intelligent automation path related to supply chains. And as the name of his book reflects, the name of his book is Noble Automation. The question is much related to this cultural question that the topic that we just discussed. How do you build automation, but you build automation with people still being at the center of that automation, which I believe that you got from my presentation, that great enduring organizations do that. So it's a different perspective from Christopher tomorrow on this topic, and he has incredibly relevant experiences and case studies that he's going to share with us. So without further ado, let's break now, wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you for spending your very valuable time with us today. For those of you who are watching this as a broadcast, thank you for taking the time to watching the videos from these amazing speakers that we had today. There's more to come in the next couple of days. In the meantime, go into LinkedIn under my name, post comments, thank our speakers for being here and sharing their wisdom. If there are questions that you have, you can post there under the comments as well. I want to thank UiPath for sponsoring this conference. None of this would be available at this level of quality if it was not for the sponsorship from UiPath. So we had, of course, Shibaji Das with us and representing UiPath, but the reality is that he's supporting all of these presentations here and bringing this quality content to all of you at no cost. And we can only do that because of the great sponsorship and leadership of UiPath. So thank you, UiPath leadership, for making this happen. And thank you again for being here with us. Great first day with very engaging discussions. So I look forward to the continued discussion in the days ahead. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.